Hello everyone and welcome to this Nintendo Life episode 113. I am your host, NBZ. I may sound slightly different because I'm a little bit under the weather, but hopefully Bally can pick me up because he's here as well. How are you doing, Bally?
I've got this. I'm doing well. I've been diving heavily back into Stardew. It's quite scary, the prospect of that game and everything you can do.
I can't even imagine owning that game on Switch because as someone who owns it on PC, I put hours into that thing that are unimaginable.
The only thing that stops you living with it is the fact that it's attached to your PC. And
exactly.
You can't bring it to bed and then bring it on the loo and then bring it everywhere with you.
It would be my forever game, probably, if I owned it on Switch.
You should pick that up at some time on Switch.
Well, we'll see when the multiplayer stuff comes back around, and hopefully if that's online and we can... Oh my god, I will fall down a big, deep hole with that if that happens. But in any case, there's lots of things happening that potentially could be fun for us online later in the year, which we'll talk about later. But Bally, how about you specifically tell people what we're going to talk about in the rest of the show?
So for the first segment, we're going to talk about what we've been playing. And as you just mentioned, there was a Nintendo Direct that we want to talk about. A lot of stuff was announced, especially that finale, which was another just great viral moment on the internet, which I enjoyed. So we'll talk all things Direct in an extended second segment, just a 2-segment show this time.
You know what we should do is we should have some campaign where we have like a picture of us with the TNL logo burning in our eyes.
Let's do it.
Because it seems to be working well for Nintendo.
That's become a meme, just things with burning Smash logo in their eyes.
Yep, absolutely. Maybe that's our next thumbnail artwork. It's just an eye with the TNL logo burning inside it. That would be very, very cool. But maybe we need some budget for that, so... Get on over to patreon.com/thisnintendolive to help us along. Anyway, let's get things rolling. Bally, what are the video games? What you been playing recently?
As I said, I'm back into Stardew. I gave it a break for a long time just because over that sort of Christmas holiday period, there was just so much out. I wanted to 100% Odyssey. I wanted to beat Final Fantasy VI. That I did. There was loads of little games like Goa, SteamWorld Dig 2. I played like Super Meat Boy, VVVVV, like playing
You've
loads.
played a lot recently.
Right,
I was just talking to you the other day, and I'm like, Bally, you're actually ahead of me right now in terms of number of games beaten this year.
So I was playing like a couple of really long things and lots of little things, and Stardew is just one of those things where I want to play it sort of by itself without many other things getting in the way, because I just want to do it, and that's what I'm doing at the moment. But before I dove deep on Stardew, as I currently am now, I played another shortish, medium-sized game, I think. That's Axiom Verge, which came out on Switch last year. Originally came out on PC in 2015, and then it was on PS4 2015, Xbox and Wii U 2016, I think. And so Switch finally 2017. This game was on sale, so I just thought, I've been meaning to play this a while. You played it way back when it came out, I think, MBZ, and it's a pretty great Metroidvania. I think that this is the game that feels the most similar to Super Metroid that I have ever played. I think there's a lot about it that feels and looks and sounds. And when I say feels, I mean both atmospherically, but also a lot of the controls feel quite similar to Super Metroid.
Some in very bad ways that we both agree on.
I think that the sort of balance of exploration and reaching a dead end, thinking, oh, I've got to come back here with this other item, and that gaming loop that Metroid is so famous for feels very like that's a really strong feeling in this game. Like and that's what I think makes it so hard to put down. It's just like, oh, if I just get this one more thing, I can come back to that area, and then you enter a new area and you just think, oh, one more thing, and then you end up playing it for like extended periods of time. Which is what I did. I think that stuff like the music and the design are really on point. It's as much as it looks like Super Metroid, there's some really cool particle effects that are repeated throughout the game in both like weapons and some of the areas. And there's one weapon which basically, how do you even describe it?
It's a glitch beam, right?
It's like a glitch. It's a glitch beam, yeah. So there's like glitchy stuff going on, and then you use this beam on it, and then the stuff that you use the beam on transforms in some way, and that can be an enemy, it can be like a doorway, it can be like a portal to another world or something. Like there's loads of cool effects like that this game uses, and that's where it really sort of stands. It looks apart from a Super Nintendo game. Like some of those particle effects get really kind of like bitty and like individual. You can see every single little particle, especially when you like defeat big bosses and they explode in like a pile of particles. It looks so good.
Yeah, oh man, those explosions are so good, and you have all the health stuff that you pick up as well is very kind of pixelated too, so you're just like absorbing all of it. And there's a real, like, this is a game that you're like, oh, this could be on the Super Nintendo, but when you really think about it, it's like, no, it could not. Really, like, the Super Nintendo could not have handled the crazy density of stuff that's in this game that really makes it very, very
and
crazy.
Some of the music is far beyond the Super Nintendo as well, even though it still feels retro.
Oh, yeah. Especially, there's that one, like, vertical shaft where you have, like, the kind of very haunting voice that's like, ah, like that kind of song that kept playing. It was an area that I remember a lot because it was where I got stuck and I was like, where do I need to go? Like I was trying to go backwards, but I couldn't get up because I didn't have a high enough jump, or the grapple hook wasn't working, and I didn't know like which direction to go in. So that area is very much seared into my mind from this game because it was where I spent a lot of time trying to figure out where to go next. But yeah, there's a deep sense of kind of weirdness to a lot of the vocal tracks in this game, which I didn't expect.
Yeah, and some of them are like really catchy, kind of like electronica kind of stuff that I really enjoyed as well. So as much as it gets a lot of the basics really solid and right, the game does have like niggles. So for one example, I think there were just some areas where it was just far too difficult to get between save points. A lot of and that's something where, and this is a criticism I have, where in Metroid, the feeling of getting stronger, more powerful, and getting between save points as you progress through the game becomes easier and easier and easier.
Yeah, by the end of Metroid Fusion, I'm usually just blitzing around every area and forgetting to save sometimes because I don't need to. I have so many energy tanks. I have like the screw attack. You just feel like a god at the end of that game. So there's no need. Whereas
here, as much as you're still getting sort of energy tank boosts and your weapon gradually gets more powerful, in comparison with the strength of enemies you're coming up against, that sense of becoming more powerful is almost non-existent to an extent. Like I felt like, other than like a few really challenging bosses, I was dying as much at the start as I was at the end, even though I knew I was getting better at the game. And
so this is where the Vania part of Metroidvania fits in far more with Axiom Verge, is that in the Castlevania kind of Metroid style games, it's far less about platforming and solving where you need to go. It's much more about surviving as long as possible to the next save point
and stuff. Exactly.
Right, because there's just corridors and corridors of enemies that you need to deal with in order to get. So it's much more about like getting to the next save point than figuring out where you need to go.
I just don't feel like that game wants to be like that. I think that it wants to be more like Metroid, and maybe it's just aimed at someone who's maybe better at these games than I am. But I mean, I don't think I'm that bad at Metroidvanias, and it is like a very tough game. I think that there's some other stuff like, so the wall dash is like a really important part of this game. It gradually gets upgraded and becomes more powerful, and you can dash further basically through. You're basically glitching through walls,
right?
Which is a really cool idea, and I enjoy it. But to use it, you have to double tap either the D-pad. I mean, I was using the analog stick, so it felt horrible on that anyway. But even when I switched to sort of the Switch D-pad, or the non-existent D-pad, the direction buttons, I guess, it still didn't feel that great on that, because you're essentially double tapping a direction. And that's fine in the slower paced areas where there's no enemies and you're just going through a wall. But there's a boss later on where dashing into it is like a really big part of that, of how to defeat that boss. And it feels horrible. It's not fun trying to do this finicky like double tapping a direction to do anything. It'd be much better if that was just like I don't know, something like on a shoulder button or a separate button.
Like in Celeste, where you just press a different button to dash or whatever.
Exactly. So that felt really bad. Also, there's a grapple hook in this game, and one of the biggest criticisms of Super Metroid is that the grapple hook feels awful. This grapple hook feels even worse. Like,
Yeah, and the reason it feels worse is because it's more modeled on Bionic Commando as opposed to Super Metroid, and that's a game that was built off the back of using grappling hooks as opposed to jumping. It was like your only way of moving around, and I was like, oh dear God, this thing feels awful. Why does it feel so bad?
It feels short, it feels slow, oh God, it's really
like
bad.
With a good grappling hook, you want to be able to you want to feel like Spider-Man essentially. You want to be able to swing across smoothly and not have to worry about anything.
That sort of stuff. Like it's just got a really solid...
SteamWorld Dig 2 has an amazing grappling hook.
And the thing, because there's no power up in this game that's like the spin jump. What do you call it in Metroid?
Screw attack.
Screw attack, exactly. Like there's no screw attack equivalent. So there's a point in Super Metroid where you're like, oh, I don't need the grapple hook anyway. I can just screw attack.
You don't have to rely on it.
You never
anymore.
reach that point in this game. You're always relying on your. You do get a higher jump, fine, but you don't get like an ability that makes the grapple hook pointless, which is a shame. One more criticism. I know I'm listing a lot of criticisms here, but I felt these strongly because it's almost a perfect game apart from these niggles. I think it's light on a couple of bosses. Like there's a couple of boss rooms you get to, and rather than facing off against a boss, it's like a cutscene explaining something plot related, and you're like, what? But and then the time.
Do you mean like the rooms where you have the kind of giant female faces? Because those seem like the big characters.
Yeah,
in the game.
Those aren't actually boss rooms. Because if you look at your map, they appear as like blue or grey.
Okay.
Whereas there's actual rooms that appear as red on your map, like a boss room. That it's just a couple of plot related cutscenes that relate to like a former boss that was there or something like it. And I mean the story. I know you didn't follow the story at all. I tried following the story, but it's really complicated and weird. And scientist gets like knocked out by an experiment. He's in this alternate universe. You don't know what's reality. You don't know what's there. And it's just a bit like, I don't know. I can't keep up with it.
We're not really sci-fi people outside of Star Wars.
True,
as we've stated in the past, Star Wars is far more of a fantasy series than it is sci-fi. So
absolutely, yeah. I've never been into this whole what's reality, sci-fi, alien stuff.
The only sci-fi stuff I like is time travel. So if you don't have that, then I'm not in.
Cool. Great, yeah. But, so yeah, I think that other than those minor flaws, some of those flaws are more major than others. I think everything else feels so slick, and like if you like any Metroidvanias, like this is a very, very good one. I think obviously you've played stuff like Hollow Knight since that I know is coming to Switch. Yeah, and I know you rate that far greater than this game. But
I mean, they're both really different types of games. You know,
sure.
Like. That's a very melee-based game, and it has a lot of different priorities. It's far more Dark Souls inspired. It's all about the combat. You know, there's the thing that I love about this genre is that you can go in so many directions. Like Ori and the Blind Forest is so significantly different to Axiom Verge, which is so significantly different to Hollow Knight, and yet I love all three of them for very different reasons, and they all stand out and they still follow the same basic formula, but there's so much divergence that goes on within that genre, and I'm so glad that independent developers have just made it such a mainstay of games these days.
It's a really complete package, and I'd highly recommend. What I do is I go on my Switch, I think that game looks good, I stick it on my watch list, and I just wait and then there's a way of looking on the Switch eShop where you can just see your watch list, and it's very good because it'll tell you what in your watch list is on offer. And I just noticed, Axiom Verge is like a third off, I'll just pick it up. So like it's definitely a game to stick on your watch list, see when it's on sale, pick it up. Even full price, it's only like 15 quid, which I don't think is awful for a game like this. So yeah, I definitely recommend checking it out, especially if you're a fan of something like Super Metroid.
Yeah, it's one of those games that I think came out and got a lot of plaudits and has continued to do well because it's just released on platforms over the years. Like it's a smart thing with indies. It's like they release on one system and then they keep releasing on the next system, so they keep being in the headlines and stuff, and that's good because it's a very well made game. Yeah, so, good stuff.
MBZ, what have you been up to?
So I am down in London again, which means I don't have like my PC and stuff, but I do have some stuff that I can play on my laptop. So I started getting back into Dragon Warrior with my full series playthrough that will happen for every Final Fantasy and every Dragon Quest game that I was talking with you about the other day, Bally, and you're like, you're a crazy person. I'm like, yes, I know.
Just tell me which ones are the best ones and I'll give those a go.
Absolutely. That's the entire purpose of this exercise, is for me to be the tastemaker here and tell you. So I beat Dragon Warrior 1 at the start of this year, the Game Boy Color version, which, as I said, I'm playing on an emulator because I can't give Square Enix any money for this anywhere, unless I don't even think the NES version's available on the Wii shop channel, which, by the way, is closing in like a week. Or not closing,
what?
they're stopping taking point submissions for the Wii shop channel. That's why RFN are doing their whole like WiiWare retroactive series.
Is Chrono Trigger on that?
Yes, Chrono Trigger is on the Wii Virtual Console. So if you want to get that Bally on that version, you need to do it before like the 26th of March, I believe, is the cutoff date. So that's when the last time you can put points onto your Wii Shop channel account in order to... So PSA for people out there, if you didn't know, if you want to get anything on the Wii Shop channel, do it now before the 26th, because otherwise you're never going to be able to buy anything from there ever again, because they're closing it. But yeah, in regards to Chrono Trigger, I still recommend the DS version. So I would say that's probably the best way to go. But where was I? I was talking about Dragon Warrior. So yes, playing the second version, which on the Game Boy Color, they released Dragon Warrior 1 and 2 as a dual pack. They did the same thing with Final Fantasy 1 and 2 on GBA. It's a 2-pack called Dawn of Souls, which is the first 2 games remade for the Game Boy Advance.
Oh, that's cool.
And so, yeah, I might get to that later as well. So I'm playing the second game as a part of that package. And the first Dragon Warrior, as I mentioned, is very basic. It's very kind of like original RPG, as we talked about a little bit in the past, like how it was inspired by kind of Western games and as the first kind of JRPG. And this game improves on it in a huge number of ways. Firstly, you have multiple party members this time, so it feels much more like a kind of moving into the future. And the story is interesting because it actually carries on directly from the first game. It's like 100 years have passed, and the hero from the first game has like, you know, gone away and married some princess and like had kids, and they've had like these generations of people coming down the years. And so you now have 3 characters who are all descendants of that first character you played in the first game, and so you have to go around, get all your characters, and then just start traversing the world. And this time, I said I was impressed by the world of Dragon Warrior 1. It's even bigger this time, on like a scale that is kind of massive. And it's interesting to kind of compare this game to the first in the same way that you would compare Pokemon Gold to Pokemon Red and Blue.
Oh, is it just double?
Not even double. It's like quadruple or like quintuple. It's enormous compared to it. But the really cool thing is, just like Gold and Silver, you can go back to that first continent again and go back into the castle, and the same music is playing. Yeah, I guess so. And same music is playing, and like the continent is kind of shrunk in Dragon Warrior 2. Like it's not as large as because the entire world of Dragon Warrior 1 is that one continent, so not as large as it was in scale. But you still have everything in the same place, and it's been affected by time. And you go back into, at one point, the Dragon Lord's castle. And you find one of his descendants there, and he actually kind of helps you on your journey, which is weird because you like fight him at the end of the last game. But I thought that was a really neat idea that they were able to like kind of keep that same world intact, whilst also like allowing you that kind of bit of nostalgia for people who are playing it back in the day. It seemed like a really neat thing to do. But it's still kind of overwhelming in terms of some of the obscurity. There are definitely... I play this game with a guide a lot. There's a lot of real bullshit.
Just walking through balls and stuff.
Well, yeah, kind of. But also, the thing with the map being so large and the Game Boy Color screen being so small is that there are multiple continents, and they are separated by huge swaths of ocean. And so there will be moments where you're just in an ocean for like, I don't know, a minute, just like a whole screen of just water, and you don't have any direction or know where you're going unless you bring up your map, your world map, which you don't get until like kind of a bit later into the game, and you could miss it potentially. But once you get the world map, like you can look, and you have to go into the menu, open it, look at it, and then go back and then see where you are. And it just really shows you how vast and enormous this world is. And there are some islands that are literally just like one square, like one, not pixel, but like one square of the map. If it was to divide it into like your character on the screen is like one square, it would be one square. And so you're trying to find sometimes this temple which is going to lead you to the end of the game. You have to collect like these 5 seals that are hidden around the world, and then this one temple is like in this one place that is so out of the way in the middle of the fucking ocean, and how anyone would have found it without like scouring and looking at that tiny world map and seeing that there was a tiny dot there.
It's just the way games were then, wasn't it? It was like, you're going to play this for 40 hours and you'll love every minute of it, even if that means scouring
like,
the world.
There is something about it that I still enjoy in a weird sadistic way that's like, I could have figured this out. And there's like some weird stuff where there's this one island that is just, there's a tree on it and it doesn't look like there's anything on it, but apparently it's like the world tree, and so if you go over it and click A when you're on top of it, you'll pick up a leaf which then like revives people and stuff. So I don't know, it was cool going through this game. It took much longer than Dragon Warrior 1, and overall I think it's just a more impressive package just because it's increased the scope so much, and you're also like dealing with a lot more kind of management in terms of healing multiple party members, and then you have spells that are more varied. Like, you still have a very limited amount, and they all unlock depending on what level you are and stuff. There's no like class system yet, which I believe they bring in the third game, which is also remade on Game Boy Color, so that's where I'll be going next. But yeah, like having, even by the end of the game, like the final boss. So here's the thing that I did at the end, which like because I don't have the time. You need to be really high level for the end game, and I wasn't. I was like 20 something, and I was like, I don't want to grind forever, so I just looked up online. And this is one of the other benefits of emulation. One benefit is like just speeding through normal battles, so I don't have to really pay attention to them and just automatically leveling up.
Find a pre-end game file and just played that.
No, I didn't find that. What I did is I found some Game Shark codes, and because emulators, you can just input cheat codes, so I just inputted like infinite XP code, and then just like everyone leveled up to like 40. So I was like, okay, did that in like 2 seconds, and then just went through the final dungeon. Even the final boss, though, I had to concentrate, even against him. So clearly you would have to be a very high level.
How long would all of that grinding have taken, though? If you're only in level
like
20s?
4 or 5 hours, maybe, if I wasn't speeding it up. Like, even speeding it up, it probably would have taken a couple. So I just was like, like, the thing with Dragon Warrior and the Dragon Quest series is that it was designed to be beaten by anyone, because all you have to do is level up. Like, as long as you grind and get higher level, you'll eventually be strong enough to where you'll just beat the game no matter what happens. And so that's, I felt like I wasn't really missing out on anything, because all I would be doing for the next however many hours is the same fights. So I was like, I'll just cheat my way to the end of this game, and it's not like I'm missing anything. I just want to see the end, and and I did, and it was good, and I enjoyed it. So yeah, so that's 2 Dragon Warrior games from the Game Boy down, 1 more to go, and I have 4 more games in the series left to beat. So I've now beaten 1, 2, 7, 8, 9. So I've beaten 5 Dragon Quest games.
What are the 3 you need to do? So 7, 8, 9 were all 3DS, right?
Well, 9 is a DS game. 7 and 8 were both remakes. 7 was originally PS1 and 8 was originally PS2, but 7 and 8 were remade for 3DS. And then I need to play 4, 5, and 6. 3, 4, 5, and 6. 3 was NES that was ported to GBC. 4 was NES that was ported to DS. 5 was SNES that was ported to DS, and 6 was SNES that was ported to DS. So the weird thing about the Dragon Quest series and my experience with it is that I've only ever played handheld Dragon Quest games. And the entire series is available in handheld games, because the first 3 are Game Boy Color games. The 4, 5, and 6 were all remade for DS. 7 and 8 were remade for 3DS, and 9 was originally a DS game anyway. And 11, well, I'm not talking about 10 because that's an MMO and doesn't fucking count. 11 is potentially coming out on Switch, so potentially you could play every single Dragon Quest game on a handheld, which is really cool, considering it started life as a console series. But in any case, that's my my ramble through Dragon Warrior. It's cool. Nice. The other game I've been playing is, I just needed something different because I've been playing a bunch of RPGs, could play Final Fantasy, and just went straight into another Dragon Warrior game.
Need some action.
I need some action, so I put on some OlliOlli 2, which runs very nicely on my laptop because it's a very low...
This came out a while ago too.
Yeah, so we talked about the first OlliOlli a while back. I think you played it, and I played it before you did. I'm way more of a fan of the series than I think you are. I
That's
fucking
good.
loved the first OlliOlli. I thought it was so much fun. It's a skateboarding game that is basically a platformer in disguise. And it's basically like a Meat Boy style platformer because you die and you have to restart, essentially, the levels. So that's how I think of it. But it is all about pulling off tricks and trying to like create huge combos and hit like perfect landings and things at the end of the level. But it's also got a weird control scheme where you have to use the analog stick to like grind on rails, and you have to press a button to land, but don't press a button to land on rails. So you really need to get your brain around like how it works. It kind of takes some time.
It's like a knack. Once you get it, you don't miss it, but you
Exactly.
need to get it into your head.
Right. And I started out and I was like, oh, I need to remember how to do this. But once I got back into the rhythm, I was super into it. And the one bad thing about this game and like this series so far is it's very quick to kind of just finish and beat all the levels, or at least the first like set of levels. But in order to unlock the other levels, the only way to do so is to hit every criteria. There's like 5 different bullet points on your standard levels, which are like, get this many points, get this much combo, do this particular trick. And some of those, for me, are very difficult because I really got in a rhythm of just trying to get one singular combo throughout the level. So I play the game very specifically. Every time I do a trick in the air, it's almost the same kind of movement on the analog stick because I have a very kind of, there's a rhythmic way that my brain is playing with it. And so if I mess anything differently or try and do any other buttons, like holding one of the shoulder buttons to spin or something, it completely messes me up. So I'm not wired in order to do stuff like, there's one trick which was like, go from this grind into this trick, and I'm like, I can't do that. My brain is not wired to do it properly, and so it's one of those things where I have to like skip over that level in order to get the pro version of it. I'm like, that's gutting because I really wished it was like, okay, if you've just beaten the main levels, we'll just let you go through the pro levels and not have to do this stuff. I don't,
and then treat it as like a high school game completely separately almost.
Yeah,
like they kind of force you into those high score elements.
They force you. It's like if Donkey Kong Country was like, okay, the first 5 worlds you need to get every Kong letter and every thingy to unlock the next 5 worlds, you know?
Right.
And that's a thing we don't like anyway, and even when it comes to like single levels. So it's like, it's a pain in the ass. Like honestly though, for me, I love playing this game so much that it's not too much of a bother, but there are levels that I will never see because it's demanding specific tricks out of me that I can't do. Like I could maybe do it luckily eventually, but I don't have the wherewithal to just sit there and try again and again.
Well, it's not worth trying for hours just to unlock the level. Yeah,
exactly. And the thing is, like, I blasted through the first 3 worlds, and then the second 2 worlds were much longer because they're much more difficult. But one of the things they added for OlliOlli 2, I'm not sure if this was in the first game, but it seemed different to me, is now you can land with a manual, which means you continue your combo going. So you can get a whole level where you basically have 0 points until the very end, and your final landing will be your final combo, and then you'll have like 1.7 million points because you've just been...
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's new. I can't remember being able to land on the manual.
Right, so basically what you do is like after you've started grinding, when you land, you have to not just press the button to land, but also tilt the stick to the side. So if you tilt the stick and press the button when you land, you pull off a manual. So you're basically like still grinding potentially, even though you're not on a grind rail. And so I was just going through every level trying to do it in one single combo because that's how you get the highest score. And it is really fun when you try and impose that challenge and try and play it that way. And I really got into the rhythm of grind rail to manual to grind rail to manual to doing a trick in the air to like. And the game looks much better than the first one as well. The backgrounds are really well drawn, and there's a great sense of parallax going on, like multiple layers, like really looks fantastic. And it does the Guitar Hero thing, which is when you're staring at the screen for too long and you look at something else and all of a sudden it starts moving to the side. Yeah. It's just like moving because your eyes have just been concentrating on going left to right so intensely that you just like stare at something that's like, oh god, like this screen in front of me is like warping away and moving outside, instead of with Guitar Hero it's like you look at the floor and suddenly the floor was moving forward and you're like, oh my god, I've been playing this for too long. So it definitely has that effect. It's a very fast game, so it pulls that off. But yeah, I love jumping back into that series. I hope they make another one, and hopefully this time, like, don't self-impose those challenge things to make it so you have to do them to unlock levels.
That'd be a good Switch game.
Yeah, I was thinking the whole time, I was like, I wish I had this on Switch, because I probably, like Celeste, like, I don't think if I had Celeste on PS4 or PC, I would have gone in as deep with it as I have, but because it's portable and I love it so much, I just keep going for it. And I've, you know, I'm not sure I mentioned this, but I basically 100%ed Celeste. I haven't got all the strawberries, but I have every single A, B, and C side, which is insane.
I feel like you were hyped for that game, but it's kind of changed your, like,
I mean, I was excited. So here's the thing, when
you had no idea it was going to be this.
No, when the game came out, I was a little bit hesitant. I'm like, oh, it's $17.99 on the eShop, and yeah, it's 15 quid on Steam. This is the kind of thing that I go through, because it just pisses me off at the eShop. I know, but it's like the eShop. Why the fuck is it 3 quid more expensive on the eShop just because Nintendo Switch tax? Like, fuck you. Fucking UK and Brexit. Oh my god.
Portability tax.
It's ruined everything. I tell you what. But I was like, okay, fine, I'll get it. And now I don't regret it a single second, because it is absolutely one of the best games I've ever fucking played. It is so good. So, yeah, there you go. I guess money doesn't matter eventually when it's like an experience like Celeste. So, anyway.
Once you're having that much joy.
Yeah. So, yeah, that's OlliOlli 2. I love it. It's great. OlliOlli is a great series. Also, here's the fun thing. If you want to get a high score and be top of a leaderboard, wait until not many people are playing a video game and then do the daily challenge. And
that's what I saw you post it on Twitter, but I didn't even know what game you were. There was no way of me telling what game it was that you were playing. So.
Yeah. Because I've been playing OlliOlli too, so they have a daily challenge, and I did it one day and I came in second. I was like, oh man, I could come in first, because there's like 8 people and like 3 of them have 0 points because they clearly fucked up on the one, because you have one run at the daily challenge. And I was like practicing the second one like again and again. I was like, okay, I can nail this. I'm like trying to figure out the best way to get more points, like do some
that was a
multiple
fun
tricks.
mode.
It's really cool. Yeah, it's a great idea. I love stuff like that. And so I was like, okay, now I'm going to do it. And I just fucking nailed it. Like, got a super combo, nailed a perfect landing, and I got like 330,000 points, which is like 50,000 clear of the next highest person. And I was like top of the leaderboard. I'm like, all right, there might be only 10 people playing this today, but I'm fucking number one. I'm number one. So I felt good about myself. And that was great. So there you go. Top tip if you want to be top of the leaderboard.
Well, when
just wait till all the good players have gone.
When a Switch version of the third game or something comes out, you can try and get number one on that leaderboard.
Oh dear God, that's not going to happen. People are too good.
Oh, we got Bit Trip Runner 3. That's a good leaderboard game.
Oh yeah, you're right. Man, that's coming out soon as well. So many good things coming up. And then there's going to be an indie showcase too. So many things. Okay, well, that's going to wrap us up for what we've been playing, but don't go anywhere, because after the break, we'll be coming back with a healthy dose of chat about the latest Nintendo Direct. You'll not want to miss it. We'll be back in a bit. Alright folks, welcome back to the second half of the show. We're going to be talking about that there Nintendo Direct, which happened a while ago. Our recording...
There wasn't quite the insane lead up to this one like the other time.
Yeah, it was definitely much more standard Nintendo fare, which is to be on a Wednesday say, oh, by the way, there's this thing tomorrow, okay, bye, we'll see you then. and then we watched it the next day. So
I like the shorter meltdowns longer than the long strung out ones with rumours floating around. It was just horrible.
It was the worst. It was so bad because I was just refreshing pages constantly and being like,
it's a disease.
Reset Era was just like melting down because like every hour it would be like reset the clock, this next hour it's happening, and people were just losing their fucking minds. So I do appreciate that when Nintendo are like, oh hey, we're doing it, it's happening, please just look forward and
let's not let
be
it
excited
leak again.
Exactly, it'd be bad. But this happened a little while ago. A recording schedule means that, hey, we get to it now. But, of course, you're going to get our hottest takes possible, because that's what we're here to do. So let's go through this. It's a long list of things, and we'll kind of decide what to talk about, which is relevant to us, and we'll skip over
that was a lot of 3DS.
There wasn't a lot of 3DS. There was a good chunk of 3DS, I'll say.
A lot more than I thought there was going to be. Do you remember that prediction I made last year
in 2017?
I think it was 2017. Yeah, and I was like, there's going to be one more game this year, and that's going to be it. I think I predicted there's not going to be any major game released this year, and then they went and announced Metroid, Samus Returns, and then
that's what it
a
was.
Whole host of games we're about to talk about.
Absolutely. But the thing is, I think there's a pattern that emerges here with 3DS, which is either it's a collection, or it's a game that hasn't been localized yet, or it's a remake of some kind, which to most degrees is like, hey, there's not a huge amount of development resources still going into the 3DS. Like, clearly it's a platform that is dying out because it doesn't have like major releases like Samus Returns on it right now, and I don't think it will do in the future. Like, we're not going to see another mainline Pokemon game on that system because they're moving on. It's going to be on Switch, so
it's going to be on both.
Yeah.
That happened this Direct as well. We'll get to that.
Yeah, that did. So let's kick things off then with WarioWare Gold, which was announced and is coming out in August. I think that is a slightly different release date for us in Europe, because I've got a bunch of North American release dates here. And unfortunately, because 3DS is still region locked, there are still kind of relevant differences in the dates when things come out here. But in any case, it is coming this year, and it's basically a collection of all the WarioWare games outside of Smooth Moves, I imagine, because Smooth Moves was very specific with, like, remember how it showed you before each micro game that you had, or before each collection of micro games, what position you had to hold, whether it was like putting it on top of your head or like holding
Smooth Moves I actually found was one of the weakest WarioWares out of like the 4 or 5 that I've played.
You mean in terms of like the quality of the minigames, or just the overall package?
Yeah, the overall package and the quality in the minigames. Like stuff like Twisted, the original GBA game that was remade on the GameCube. Like those are probably my favourites. Touched is probably right after that. And then Smooth Moves was just kind of, I don't know, it fell flat. Definitely my least played WarioWare game.
Fun fact about Smooth Moves, I beat the entire thing with my sister and Ali T in an afternoon when he was round at my house, and we all played through all the mini games together, and we basically beat the entire thing in one sitting. I was like, oh, well, I guess we've unlocked all the multiplayer stuff now, so let's try that out. But like, that was kind of weird that we went through the whole game pretty quickly. It's very digestible, but also like, those are micro games, so they disappear fast, and unless you're going for high scores, then you don't get a huge amount out of them. But the one thing I do like about Smooth Moves is the 9-volt stuff, because there's like that Wind Waker game where you're floating with the leaf.
That is
cool.
Like
when they're able to like take console games, like big like 3D things, and put them into WarioWare, I like that about Smooth Moves. But other things were not as great. But as we kind of mentioned, because it is collating things from DS and Game Boy Advance and kind of, I guess, GameCube as well, but the GameCube was basically the GBA game anyway.
Right.
It's being put on the 3DS as a result of a lot of those minigames requiring certain aspects, such as the dual screens or the touch screens.
Apparently it has some new games as well.
Yeah, they're going to be new games. There's 300 total, I believe. But a lot of people are like, oh, why is this not on the Switch? Well, to be on the Switch, they would have to really reconfigure a lot of those old minigames, because the DS had a huge amount in touch that they wouldn't be able to put on there without like doing a lot of work to remix them and make them adjust to the Switch's different interface. So, that's why WarioWare Gold is on 3DS, but it would be nice to get a new WarioWare on Switch. But it also follows in the model of something we've already seen on 3DS, which is Rhythm Heaven, because they put out a collection of Rhythm Heaven stuff called Mega Mix, and apparently in Japan it's called Rhythm Heaven Gold. So this is pretty directly related in that way. It's essentially just like a greatest hits collection of WarioWare. And I don't know if you're interested in this at all, because we've both played all these minigames and we have access to them in some way. I would like to play some more WarioWare at some point, though, because it's been a while.
The fact it's on 3DS is quite a big, is quite off-putting. I'm looking to buy games on Switch. I only want to buy games on 3DS if I absolutely have to, like Samus Returns, for example. Like, I'm not really prepared to replay games again on 3DS. So had this gold version been on Switch, I might have picked it up. Still, I'd like a more new WarioWare. So yeah, it's nice that it's there. I'm glad to see WarioWare still alive. Like, it's been quite a while. So I want a big fresh one on Switch at some point in the future.
Something I'll say about Nintendo fans that I've heard talking about this Direct a lot, and in terms of just Switch generally, it seems like for a lot of Nintendo fans, people are fine just buying the game again, even if it has like a tiny bit more stuff in it. And I never feel that way ever about a game. Like, if I've played that game and they add a small amount of stuff, that's like, maybe it's just like my monetary senses kicking in or whatever, or my value. I'm like, no, I've already played that game and they're adding like a minute amount. I'm not paying the same amount of money to buy the entire goddamn game again. You know, it's just... You've
not bought Mario Bros. 3 like 5 times?
No, it's just not how I operate. It's not what how I like behave around games. So I think we're very different in that sense. So something like WarioWare Gold is like, well, I already own those games, so I'm not paying more money to just get the thing I already have, plus a tiny bit more. So anyway, that'll come up again later. So the next thing is Dillon's Dead Heat Breakers. Dillon's Rolling Western, a game that came out, early on in the 3DS's lifespan. I believe this is the third game in the series. Never really appealed to me. Never got really great reviews ever. It's just one of those eShop exclusive Nintendo series that...
This game looked weird.
Yeah, it's kind of like racing mixed with like some kind of battle mechanics as well. It's I don't know. It doesn't look particularly great. It's not really piquing my interest.
When the 3DS is rendering those sort of 3D polygons in a 3D space in like a big action game like that, it looks quite dated now. Like
it does, yeah.
And obviously with the Switch, it's just promoting a new game like that, Dillon's Dead Heat Breakers. It just did not look good at all. And as you said, like the previous games haven't had great reviews, and this game is just mad. And I don't know who the audience of this game would be.
No, I really have no idea, because what it seems like with 3DS right now is if it is something that is not a recognizable IP, they would be doing better to put it on the Switch, and we will get to that later because that is relevant to a game that is coming out. But this seems like it's just going to be a dud and not going to sell at all. So we'll see, but I don't know. I mean, I guess Dillon's Rolling Western is technically a recognizable IP to some people, but it's very, very minute in the grand scheme of things.
It's an assist trophy in Smash Brothers.
It is an assist. That's the best way to describe the Dillon series. It's an assist trophy.
But unfortunately, Advance Wars is also an assist trophy, and I'd like to think Advance Wars is ranked a lot higher than Dillon's Rolling Western.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Very sad. Oh, God.
So don't bring that analogy up too often.
Oh, boy. Okay, so next up we had Mario & Luigi's Bowser's Inside Story, which was originally a DS game. It was the third Mario & Luigi RPG, and Nintendo doing the same thing here with
Apparently
Alpha Dream.
Is the fourth one on 3DS.
I believe so, because they had...
remakes.
Yeah, so they had Dream Team Brothers, which was the fourth game in the Mario & Luigi series. Then they had Paper Jam, which was the crossover with Paper Mario. Then they had the Superstar Saga remake, and this is the Bowser's Inside Story remake. For some reason, they're skipping over Partners in Time, which was the second game in the series. Maybe, I don't know why they're doing that, but
remember
anyway.
You getting burned pretty hard on that Luigi one. You thought it went on a bit long.
Dream Team sucks ass. That game should have ended after 20 hours.
It's like 40 or something.
Yes, it's 40 hours. It's ugly as fuck. I hate that art style. It's probably my least favorite art style of anything, and yet they continue to use it. it's just making, like, the original DS game for Bowser's Inside Story has gorgeous pixel art. It's just so beautifully rendered. And you look at this and it's just a fucking mushy mess. It looks disgusting. I really dislike this art style so strongly. So
you won't be picking up then?
I will not be playing this version. If I ever play Bowser's Inside Story, it will be the original DS version. Thank you very much. But this does include a bunch of extra stuff. There's a new kind of sub-story, kind of similar to what they did with Superstar Saga. They had extra stuff in there. But this is a 2019 3DS game, Bally. 3DS is not dead.
Man.
It's 2019. It's happening.
And they announced it in March, like
why?
not even near the end of the year. It's like, it's just sort of like a it's a statement. It's we will be here in 2019 with 3DS. Look out. And it was quite a jaw-dropping moment when I saw that for 2019, a 3DS game. But
I was originally thinking, because a lot of people were mentioning it was 2019, I was like, oh no, that must just be delayed for America, because I was like, oh, I'm pretty sure on the UK Direct they showed it as being this year sometime. So I'm like, oh, that's why. It's because they're putting it out first in the UK or in Europe, and then they're putting it out in America in 2019. But no, I went back and checked the UK Direct, and it is still 2019 there. So I don't know. Weird. I just guess maybe they're just like, this is the last kind of batch of 3DS announcements they're doing for a while, and they're just like, get out of the way now.
Hopefully.
So next up we have Detective Pikachu, which is coming out very soon, actually this week when this podcast goes live. So that's an interesting one that I'm actually kind of curious about. I don't know how you feel about it, Bally, but it looks a damn sight better in terms of visual fidelity than any Pokemon game that's ever been released on 3DS thus far.
I do love the world of Pokemon, and the idea that like there's a spin-off adventure in that world does excite me. I've obviously not played any of the Phoenix Wright games or any detective style games, so maybe this is more up your street, but it does look really cool, and those cutscenes, and like I said, that world is just a cool world to explore, and just the idea of a detective Pikachu, just I can't take it seriously. It's just
like
hilarious.
A deep voiced Pikachu, like making like lewd jokes and stuff is just
it's going to be weird. It's going to be
weird. It is weird, but it's actually kind of perfect. Like, I really like that idea for some reason.
Yeah.
It just seems...
I'm really intrigued to see what people think of this.
Yeah, as you said, like, for me, as someone who's a fan of, like, Layton and Phoenix Wright, it definitely seems in that vein in terms of the style of game. So, I'm interested. Like, kind of feels like a bit of Telltale mashed up with that, which is curious. Yeah. So, yeah, definitely, like, the one original 3DS game here that seems like something I'm interested in. I mean, the other thing that they announced, which I am kind of still interested in, is Luigi's Mansion for 3DS, which is a remake that is coming out this year at some point. And this one's really interesting because a lot of people are like, oh, why is it not on Switch? Blah, 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 blah. And there's quite a few reasons why I can think of why it's not on Switch. And one of the reasons is, well, they had that engine for Dark Moon, which, you know, easy to repurpose the original Luigi Mansion into that because it's already built.
It's quite surprising they can do that, but just based on how different those two games are, and like
but like a lot of the mechanics in terms of the vacuum sucking and everything, I imagine they have revamped somewhat to more fit into the Dark Moon style and stuff like that. And also the curious thing, which I haven't heard a lot of people bring up, but originally back in the GameCube days, Nintendo were testing out 3D for the first time. They were trying to get 3D onto the consoles since back then, and eventually they got through with 3DS with the kind of stereoscopic stuff. But back in the day, they did tests to have 3D work on the GameCube, and Luigi's Mansion, the original, was a test bed for that. Like, that game was built to use the 3D and to take advantage of it. And thinking now, the 3DS has a lot of games that use 3D. Dark Moon is one of the best uses on the entire system, I would say.
I hope this game has 3D. They turn it off for a lot of recent releases. That scares me.
Exactly. So that's why I am a little bit skeptical, but it would make the perfect sense in the world for it to come full circle and for their original GameCube 3D tests to, you know, result in Luigi's Mansion eventually being seen in 3D. That would be great, because at this point, 3D is just such a forgotten feature of the system that both of us love, but no one else seems to pay attention to. I do hope that they have it in there. It would be really bad if they didn't. don't know. It just seems
Yeah.
weird.
No, I'd be interested in this one. I owned Luigi's Mansion on the GameCube, played like the first few hours, and was like, this isn't for me. But that was when my gaming tastes were pretty naive, I think it's fair to say, and not very matured.
Well, like, we just had different priorities back then. Like, our priorities were in the multiplayer space, local co-op, like that kind of stuff, and it was far less about playing games on your own.
Yeah. So I would like to pick it up again. Like
yeah, I think I'm going to wait until it like goes down in price, because as people say, this game is incredibly short. It's like a 3-hour, 4-hour game. So it's definitely, it has some new stuff, which is like a boss rush mode, but aside from that, it doesn't look like it's anything else. So that's all the 3DS stuff. Just quickly overview of 3DS, Bally. Do you think that this is kind of the last dregs, as we said, like a lot of, remasters and collections? Are we going to get any more 3DS stuff? I mean,
seeing as my predictions for this stuff is so good when it comes to the life of the 3DS, but I think that it's nice because there's a lot of people out there who own 3DSs and not Switches, and they want to play games, and Nintendo giving them games. Obviously, a lot of these games take a lot less development efforts and time and money than some of the stuff coming out on Switch, and I think that's a good thing. Like, we want them to put more of their heart and soul into Switch games. So
absolutely,
remaking something like Luigi's Mansion, stuff like Detective Pikachu is a fascinating game. It still blows my mind. And then stuff like the WarioWare Gold, it's not my cup of tea, but there's lots of people who will own a 3DS who have never played a WarioWare game, and that will be right up their street.
Yeah, I mean, like, you jumped into Rhythm Heaven with Megamix, which is a great way to do that.
Exactly, and that I really enjoyed that, and this is basically the WarioWare version of that game.
Yeah, totally. So that's cool, getting it. I think maybe it works in the level of getting people into the WarioWare series and then moving on to Switch and having a new one and having more brand recognition.
At some point, a bit down the line.
Because it has been a while. Like, the last Wario-related thing in terms of WarioWare was Game & Wario, I believe.
Right.
And that was not good. People did not enjoy that game. Aside from the one thing with the Miiverse, which is now shut down, that you can't do anymore.
That was weird,
That was great, but alas, it is now dead. So then let's move on to the Switch stuff, which is kind of the meat and potatoes of this shebang. And we kick things off with some Kirby Star Allies news. There are going to be some free character updates up until March 28th, which include a bunch of characters from old Kirby games like Dreamland 2 and Dreamland 3, a bunch of animal friends.
Do you know Rick, Kine, Koo, Marks, and Gooey? Do you know them?
Yes, Marks. Karl Marx, that famous Kirby character. He wrote his manifesto on
all your favorite Kirby
floating
friends
in the sky. Yeah, I don't know. None of these characters do anything for me. Gooey kind of looks like a rip-off of Slime from Dragon Quest, so that's a little bit weird.
I know why Nintendo do it. It's obviously great publicity with the Direct coming out, and they always do this at E3 as well, but it's always frustrating when games that are just about to come out or already out get featured in these Directs, and you're looking at the clock and you're thinking, we've got 40 minutes, we need as many announcements as possible, and the second you see a game that you already know about and that's coming or that's out or almost out, it's kind of like, God, I need some new announcements. Give them to me.
Yeah, definitely. But I mean, that game is out this week, or it's already out actually. The game is already out.
Average reviews.
So, I mean, people want to push people to buy it. And that's the thing with Switch right now, is if this Kirby game had come out on Wii U, it would have got no buzz whatsoever. No one would have cared about it. Nothing would have been written about it.
The media has changed. They're just like, Switch.
Because everyone is so obsessed with Switch and everyone wants new games on it, and it is a first-party Nintendo game, people are like, okay, let's play this Kirby game. Like, people are giving it a shot in a way that I don't think they would have done otherwise. So,
absolutely.
But to me, it's still a Kirby game, so I'm not going to give it a shot anyway. So, next up, we have Okami HD.
It made it.
Finally, Capcom finally getting their fucking heads out their asses and putting things on Switch. It's really nice to see that. Because we've got Mega Man Legacy Collection coming later this year, which I'm excited to play that on Switch. Like, play all the Mega Man games on Switch. Oh, it's going to be great. But Okami HD. Last time Okami was available on the Nintendo system was with the Wii version back in the day, which our good old friend Ali T has played that game like 7 times because he's obsessed with it.
Did he not get stuck on one bit? There's like one boss.
I remember
that's very
he did.
hard, apparently.
He did. I have this abiding memory of being at his house, and he was stuck on this like, it's kind of like a thwomp type enemy, which like had its body made of stone, and it had like all these markings on it, and it was like this puzzle to figure out like where you have to circle with the brush or whatever to strike through all the markings. And I remember like holding my finger up to the TV because they disappeared, so I like had to like put like points on the TV with my finger to make sure he knew where to move his marker to in order to like kill it or whatever. And I, for whatever reason, that memory is stuck with me. That's the one thing about Okami that I know. Yeah, it's a game that we both need to play at some point. It's one of those games that always gets brought up.
Might even
held
be a
in high
backlog
regard.
club.
Yeah, potentially. It is a 30-hour game, so maybe not. But
oh god, yeah.
We'll get to that. I'm excited that this is coming to Switch. I'll probably get to it at some point. Maybe not as soon as it comes out, but.
And with the they're not called spells. What are the things you do in that game? But can you use the
paintbrush
screen?
stuff?
The paintbrush, is that all to do with the touchscreen of the Switch, or are you gonna do the what do you call it? The pink Joy-Con by itself?
The kind of more motion control based stuff. So I think in the other versions you just use analog stick. So they'll probably offer the ability to use analog stick still, but then you can also, if you're in handheld, do the touchscreen. I think probably touchscreen is the best, honestly. Motion control seems okay, and that's what they used on Wii, but touchscreen seems the most tactile. And I think that would work, but I don't know, because it does pause battle when you do that stuff, so it is possible, but like, I don't know, going between touchscreen and then moving your hand back and moving your hand back and forward, it might be a little bit finicky. So could just rely on the analog stick still. But it's really good that Okami HD is on Switch having those features, because I think a lot of developers could have been like, nah, I'm just going to put the same thing on there and not adapt to the feature set. But it seems like a lot of third parties have been adding stuff. Like Doom now has motion controls, which is great news, and that's like, that bodes well for Wolfenstein later this year, so hopefully that'll ship with motion controls. But like Bally, as someone who plays a lot of Splatoon with motion and like isn't super confident using dual analog for kind of shooting style games, if you get around to Doom at some point, you can now do that instead, and that probably works better for you.
Exactly. I'd be up for it.
It's good when that stuff happens. So then next up, we have Sushi Striker, The Way of Sushido, which was announced at last year's E3 during one of the Treehouse days, because Bill Trinen was hyping it up on Twitter, and Bill Trinen was like, oh, there's this little cool thing that's coming up on the stream, and people were overhyping themselves because they're all stupid. And it was, it's a 3DS game where you throw sushi, and it seemed neat. But it's one of those games, as we mentioned before, that used to be on 3DS. It is still coming out on 3DS, but it is now coming out on Switch as well. And so a lot of people have been bringing up the point of like, well, if they're doing this for Sushi Strikers, why are they not doing it for Luigi's Mansion on 3DS? And like, as I said, the reason why Sushi Strikers gets this treatment is because it would be dead in the fucking water on 3DS. It's an unknown IP. No one's ever heard of it before. It's weird. It's Japanese. And people are willing to give stuff like this a shot on the Switch. And they just are not able to do that on 3DS. So it would have sunk on that system. It's still going to release on that system, so I'll probably sell some copies. But the vast majority of this game's sales are going to be on Switch. I can guarantee you that. So it's a smart move, I think, for them to move the priorities and make that the kind of major release as opposed to the 3DS version. So... Are you interested in this game at all? It looks quirky and weird and like kind of puzzle game.
Yeah,
it seems neat.
I think it's just going to come at a time when we're going to be playing other things. I think. I think
it's kind of like during E3 almost, like June 8th is like
right
when E3 is happening. So
yeah. I mean, it does look zany and incredibly Japanese, and I'm not really into that puzzler style game. There's not a whole lot of games like that I've gotten into. I don't know if this is
very arcadey
one that would make me jump in.
So then the big kahuna, the one that we're excited about the most, Octopath Traveler. That's its final name, apparently. And the weirdest thing about this is when they show the special edition, the Switch box is literally a black background and it just says Octopath Traveler on it. And I'm like, are you kidding me? Is that going to be what the Switch box looks like for this game? Just a black background with Octopath Traveler? Do you want to sell copies of this game? Because I don't think that's a good way to go about it. But hopefully they change that before launch. And launches soon. Launches July 13th. which I did not expect it to be that early. I expected like late August at the most, but that's great. It's coming out so soon.
Excited for this game. We have talked a lot about this game on the show before, and it's just looking so good. I'm still dying to know how they get these 8 paths to link together and how much they cross over, etc.
Yeah, and they did show off a couple of new characters who seem neat, and they have unique different path actions, as they call them.
Job system.
Yeah, they showed off the job system a bit more. Like, you get to choose multiple jobs for characters, and, you know, if they have a good job system, that makes me happy, because Dragon Quest 7, man, fucking love that job system. That was so good. So, if they do that, that will be great. But, we'll have to wait and see, and it's coming out soon, so not too long to find out about that. Then we have Travis Strikes Again, No More Heroes, which is the first time we got gameplay of this. A lot of people were talking about, like, what is this game going to be? No one has any idea what it actually is. And it feels very different to the standard No More Heroes fare, because it's not really third-person behind-the-back camera kind of action.
It's all sorts.
It feels, it's kind of all sorts, but it feels like this mix between top-down arcade twin-stick shooter style, but you have a kind of melee weapon instead. Linear levels, like kind of shoot 'em up style, like going up the screen. But also there was like a boss battle that looked like Fury. I don't know if you've seen much of Fury, Bally, but it was an indie game that came out maybe 2 years ago now. Maybe it was last year. That was kind of an isometric boss fight game, and it's on Switch at the moment, so you can check it out there. But it had that kind of isometric, quick sword play, and in kind of large boss arenas, and one of the moments in the trailer really gave that vibe to me. So it kind of feels like they're leaning into some of that influence, as well as it seems like there's kind of a text adventure in there. It's going to be a big mix of weird, and you know what, Suda51, he's a weird dude. He makes strange games, and when I played No More Heroes 2 last year, I was super into the weird stuff it was doing. So this game doesn't quite look like what I'm in for in terms of the same kind of gameplay that I like from No More Heroes, but I'm willing to give it a try, because there is something crazy and unique about what that studio does, and I would like to experience it. So maybe I'll wait and see what people say, but I'm into it. So looking forward to that. Then we have some more stuff about Dark Souls, which is coming out soon in May. They announced a goddamn amiibo.
That amiibo, what? Who is this character, Solaire? What's that about?
Apparently, he's just this guy in the game, in the game who praises the sun. It's a meme from Dark Souls about praising the sun, and so when you tap it onto the Switch, your character will praise the sun, which is to put their arms in the air. And this is where it's come full circle, Bally, because back in the furor of the early of this year, when people were going crazy about the Direct and the Chibi Robo on Fire, that Chibi Robo on Fire was praising the sun. And here we are. We now have an amiibo praising the sun.
It's the most random amiibo ever.
It's crazy. I am floored. That's
almost as random as the large Detective Pikachu amiibo.
Yeah.
It's like 4 times the size of regular Pikachu.
Crazy. But the other thing I want to mention about Dark Souls Remastered is that they're having a network test, which is basically a beta. So people who want to try out some Dark Souls before this comes out, we can do that. We can just download it and check it out and see how it all works and give it a whirl. So, Bally, if you're willing to give Dark Souls a go, that network test is going to be happening. So then we had a big section on kind of the focus of this Direct, which was Mario Tennis Aces. They had mentioned before that they were going to talk about Mario Tennis Aces, and boy did they for a very long time. Bally, you're the Mario Tennis guy here. A lot of people on the internet have been going like, oh yeah, this game looks great, I'm super into it, I love all the stuff they're doing, it's like super deep, they've got all these strategies. You are the opposite end right now. What's going on, Bally? Why do you not like this new Mario Tennis game?
The best Mario Tennis game is the Game Boy Color game. It's base level. The basic mechanics of tennis are done well, and on top of that, it's got a story mode with a character that you level up, and you can make their technique better, or their power better, or their speed better, and then you could link that character to the N64 game, and the N64 game is the next best Mario Tennis game, and it was good because it just, at a very base level of raw tennis mechanics felt very, very good. Like, it was enjoyable. There's none of this power shots and all this other stuff.
But Bally, you can turn all that off. You can just turn that off. You can play your boring ass vanilla tennis, as I know you like to do.
But then I feel like I'm not playing the game that it was designed to be played, you know. And
okay,
I would be skeptical of buying a game purely to play that mode. And as good as the N64 version of the game is, stuff like the tournaments and stuff isn't good enough. I want a story mode, an adventure mode that actually has RPG mechanics in it. And apparently the Game Boy Advance version had this as well. I never played that version, but it just feels like the console games are just so far from that. And I had bought the GameCube Mario Tennis. It was one of the most sterile sports games I've ever played.
Didn't that one have all the crazy fucking power moves and stuff?
Yeah, and I don't like it. It's like the N64 version.
You're just like the most vanilla person when it comes to this stuff, and I find it so funny. You just like it's like when we try to play Smash, and I'm like, okay, let's play slow mo with metal and bunny ears, and you're like, nope, don't want to do it. And like, you know,
I don't know. It's like, you can make the Mario Kart comparison as well, but Mario Kart always has been the zany weapons and power-ups and things.
Right, that's
Mario
built
Tennis
into the
didn't
idea.
Used to be like that. The same with the golf games, largely. Like, yes, there are interesting things here and there on the course, but ultimately the golf mechanics are really, really strong.
But do you think like what they're showing here is really that zany? Because to me, it just feels like they're adding a ton of nuance and depth to the mechanics, right? Like having the ability for the racket to break, like giving it its own stamina wheel, doesn't feel like a super move to me. It just feels like adding an extra layer to the complexity that's going on.
It's the problem that there are other super moves, and the game is preparing itself for these ridiculously long rallies. And Mario Tennis on the N64, if you played it right, you could do short rallies, because in real life tennis, most rallies are very short, and it was there was some semblance of realism in that. And this just sort of, your racket has 3 lives and it's got this bar, and if you time it just right, it won't get damaged. It's like, that's not tennis. And like,
but like the Mario sports games are not the sports most of the time, and I think that's the thing, is like Nintendo like to put their own spin on these things, and people buy those games because they aren't just tennis or just golf.
And something like Strikers Charged on the Wii I really enjoyed, and that was Next Level Games, and that sort of, rather than trying to be football with weapons, it kind of that's soccer, I should say. It created almost a sport of its own. Like that game feels nothing like soccer because of the way that it feels more like ice hockey or something. Like the way that the ball moves around, and like they're not really creating their own sport with this tennis game. It's just tennis with sort of bells and whistles, and by bells and whistles I mean like these power moves, and it just doesn't look good. I could be wrong. I could play some sort of demo of this game at some point, or I'm not keen on buying it at the moment, but like,
Bally,
if it feels good.
Speaking of a demo for this game, they are having a pre-launch event, which is going to be a tournament, and that is coming before launch, which will allow you to play some Mario Tennis before it comes out, give it a whirl, see what it's like.
I just want to feel what it's like, because the N64 version it's got a real weighty feel to the shots and the timing, and from what I could see of the footage of this game, it just isn't that in the slightest. It's quite sterile, like the GameCube version.
All right, well, there you go.
That's my hot take.
All you Mario Tennis fans, write your hate mail now. You can email us whenever you want, because Bally not a fan here. Next up, we have Captain Toad Treasure Tracker, the hit Wii U game, which is now being ported over. Every port that happens, Bally, from the Wii U is another stripping of the identity of the Wii U. It feels like I barely know it anymore, because every single part, every game that makes the Wii U is slowly just stripped away.
I'm okay with that. What the Wii U is sort of the core console for me of the podcast that we've done. And what I mean by that is, like, the Wii U in my mind will always be the console that I caught up on a lot of awesome classic Nintendo games on. Like, like Earthbound and games like Link to the Past, like really classic Nintendo games I spent a lot of time with, and that's how I will always define the Wii U in my mind, because it just had such a great virtual console. And yes,
Yeah.
a lot of its modern games were great, and loads of them are being ported, like Tropical Freeze, for example. And that's okay too. I'm not concerned as such about a console's identity, perhaps.
I will always remember the Wii U for being the best YouTube machine ever invented by human history. It was just incredible. I spent many hours on the toilet.
And the best Smash Brothers experience we've ever had.
Yes, but you know,
that's going to come. But yeah.
Well, we'll get to that. But I spent many hours on the toilet in the morning watching YouTube videos on my Wii U gamepad. It was great. It was maybe the best implementation of YouTube or internet. It was the best internet browser a video game console has ever had, bar none. And the Switch doesn't even have a browser.
I'll remember it for games like Star Fox Zero and Nintendo Land that aren't going to get ported anytime soon, because they're just so unique to the way that the gamepad operates. And both those games got very mixed reviews, and that's fine. But I really enjoyed both of them. And it's cool. Like, I thought it just did some interesting things, and that's how I'll remember it, even if a lot of the good stuff does get shipped across.
Yeah. So then Captain Toad Treasure Tracker not only coming to Switch, also 3DS. And I keep hearing, like, there's all these people, they're constantly like yammering on about like, why can't these 3DS games be on Switch? And like for every single one of them, I can give them a concrete reason why. Captain Toad is very easy, because Captain Toad was built for the ground up for Wii U in the first place. So it's very easy to make a Switch version of that. Whereas Luigi's Mansion for 3DS, it takes a lot more effort to upport a 3DS style game to the Switch than it does to downport a Switch style game to the 3DS, you know? Like putting Treasure Tracker on the 3DS takes much less effort and is much easier, I imagine, than creating whole new HD assets for Luigi's Mansion. So that's why Captain Toad is being put on the 3DS, but also because on the 3DS, Captain Toad will do incredibly well, because it feels like those dioramas are custom built for that system. I remember talking on the podcast ages ago about why Captain Toad would be such a great fit on the 3DS, is because 3D Land does such similar stuff. Like, there are puzzles in 3D Land which require that perspective shifting, and though we didn't have that kind of 3D on Wii U, I think that it will work really well on the 3DS in order to kind of do a lot of that stuff.
If the game has 3D.
If the game has 3D, as we've said, it's like, please put 3D in Luigi's Mansion for 3DS, please put 3D in Captain Toad. Otherwise, these ports seem very weird. Like I get why you put them on there, because there's an audience for them, but also
I'm just worried like 80% of people who have a 3DS don't even use the.
No, they don't, 3D. Especially because all these kids own 2DSs anyway. But like, God, both of those games are so perfect for 3D.
The mothers have ripped off the 3D button or something, like the 3D slider. Mum's like, getting rid of that. I'm not going to have any 3D muck in my house.
I will not have my child be blinded by this devil's nonsense, you know. Probably.
Goes and watches TV for 10 hours in a row.
I know, yeah. Oh, boy. So anyway, Captain Toad coming out is good. It also has some bonus Mario Odyssey stuff for people.
Oh, cool.
It does. It looks great. I'm not going to pay fucking 40 quid just to play a few Mario Odyssey levels. You know what I mean? Like,
I liked Captain Toad, but it's not in my top echelon of enjoyable games, you know?
Yeah, I really like Captain Toad a lot. It was one of those games that I wasn't compelled to 100% because
same.
It was a little bit awkward at moments, like go and get those gems and stuff. But anyway, it had a lot of charm to it. It's a very cool series. I want them to make a new one as opposed to porting it. But, you know, for now, Nintendo have to fill out their lineup somehow, and they're doing a lot of ports to do that. So there you go. The next game to be announced is one that I suggested in a video at the end of last year should definitely come to Switch, because it is very similar to a lot of classic Nintendo games, most particularly Earthbound and the Mother series, and that is Undertale, a game which came out on PC, I think in 2015 at this point. It was a while ago. Undertale is a really good game. It's one of those games that gets overhyped for people because the community around it is just so insane. Like, people are ludicrous when it comes to Undertale, and it still has such an incredible, like, very vibrant community, like, artistically and also musically, because the soundtrack to that game is incredible. So there's so many covers and remixes and stuff on YouTube that you can look up. It's a game that you definitely need to play, Bally. I'd
like to. It's one of those games where I really don't know why it's popular. I don't know many details about the game.
Yeah.
And I kind of want to leave it at that. I just know that a lot of people like the game a lot, and I just want to go in as blind as possible. And,
you should.
And play it.
Yes, absolutely. And as someone who is a huge fan of Earthbound, you're doing this the right way, which is to play Undertale after playing Earthbound. I did it the other way, which is to play Earthbound after playing Undertale. And I did gain a greater appreciation for Undertale after playing Earthbound. So you're going to have just a better experience first time round anyway. So, nice. And they haven't given a release date for that, unfortunately. But I believe it is 8-4 who are working on it because they did the PS4 and Vita versions
cool.
last year. So they will be bringing that out soon on the Switch. Good stuff. Next up, Crash Bandicoot. He's back. The N-Sane Trilogy.
He's coming at the wrong time, damn it.
Yeah, he's coming 3 days before Octopath, so we're probably not going to get to this.
I want to play this. It looks
yes,
good. I've
so
never
do
played I've had Crash and held it in my hands before long ago when I was a kid, but like
you played some at my house.
At friends' houses, that's what I mean, right?
Yeah.
But I've not sat down and played a lot of it myself, so I'd like to give it a go, yeah. But yeah, it's coming at the wrong time.
There was an image floating around on Twitter the other day, which was like Mario Odyssey, Sonic Forces, Crash Bandicoot N-Sane Trilogy, and Minecraft all on Switch, and it's like the console wars are dead because you've got Sega, Microsoft, and Sony having all these games, even though technically Crash Bandicoot isn't Sony because Activision own that franchise and are publishing it. Okay, but it's strange that Minecraft is this Microsoft published game on Switch, and now you have Crash Bandicoot, which is the icon of Sony.
Was Crash in that Sony All Stars Fighter? What's it called?
Nope.
It wasn't.
They couldn't even get Crash for that game.
God damn.
Oh, that
Crash
game is
for Smash.
it's such a sad mess, unfortunately. But yeah, Crash could be in Smash Brothers, which would be the most bizarre thing possible. We would really be going through.
It's not the most bizarre thing possible.
No,
Cloud
of course
it's
not.
Pretty damn. I don't know. Cloud seems like the most insane thing that ever happened to that game. But
yeah,
it'll take some beating. It might get beaten though. That's the interesting thing.
We have probably a few months ahead of us of some things.
We've got months and months to talk about Smash. We'll speculate.
Yeah, so I originally owned Crash Bandicoot 2 on PlayStation 1, so that's the game I'm most familiar with. I think people say 3 is the best. I don't know, because I just played them as a kid. I remember being around.
Are they good games?
No, not really. The platforming is kind of bad, and it's a very different style of platformer. Mario 64 went in a direction of open environments, and you had other knights doing this weird side-scrolling thing, and then Crash was doing something which was up and down towards the camera. It was a very different approach to what platforming would be in 3D.
I reckon this game will be the best-selling game on Switch in the UK for 2018.
You are probably right. You are probably
you watched
right.
This.
I would not be surprised. My dear
it's
God,
outsell everything.
God, the UK has such an insane nostalgia for PS1 because it was the biggest thing in the world here. It was just the thing.
We're obviously pretending people in the UK even own or know what a Switch is, which
that's true.
Isn't the case at all. But yeah,
no. But Crash Bandicoot is one of those games I played when I was younger. I have nostalgia for it, so I'll probably pick this up at some point and give it a whirl. Definitely more likely to play it on Switch than I am on PS4 or anything else, just because it's a kind of nice portable game that I'd like to check out. Next on the docket, we have Little Nightmares Complete Edition, which this is a game I was kind of interested in last year, kind of Inside-esque in terms of...
scary.
Yeah, it is a little bit frightening, but it's like a puzzle platformer style thing. It didn't look like it was running very well to me. It looked like the frame rate was getting a bit rough, and the kind of resolution was not very high. It's made me a little worried, actually, for the version of Inside that ships on Switch. Although I have faith in Playdead to make a good version. Inside is one of those deceptive games in you look at it and it's well, that could run. But when you play it, the quality of the animation and the lighting and every little detail in that game seems like maybe it could potentially struggle on Switch if they really try and push all those things in there.
Right.
And I would like it to run at 60 and be a good version. So seeing Little Nightmares not be very optimized here is a little worrying when it comes to that, because it's a very similar pseudo 3D 2D game. So I don't know. They, for some reason,
And Pac-Man's in it.
Pac-Man amiibo, because Bandai Namco publishes it, and obviously Pac-Man is their dude. So that's neat. A little more amiibo functionality, randomness. But there's another indie game that's been highlighted. So there you go. Probably will do quite well on Switch. Then we have the Ubisoft game that makes the most sense. Not the one they announced, which is still not out on Switch, which was Steep. They announced Steep for like the start of the Switch's life cycle, and no one has seen anything or heard anything about that game. Yeah, they did.
Weird.
It's like one of the first Ubisoft games that got announced for Switch was Steep. And people were like, what the fuck is this now? Like, because it's clearly not, something's happened.
Did people like Steep?
People think Steep was a thing. I don't know, it was okay. It came out at a time when no one was paying attention. So
I remember at Gamescom we could have experienced Steep VR. That was like
could we?
Am I thinking of it right? Am I thinking of the right game?
Well, Steep is just a snowboarding, like kind of snow sports game.
No,
you know?
I think I
like
might
it's
be
a very
thinking
realistic,
of a different game. Ubisoft made some sort of open world, like flying, gliding game.
Far Cry.
No.
Maybe you're thinking of Just Cause. I don't know what you're thinking of.
It's like a single syllable word, like steep.
Oh no,
It's like
I actually
fly
have
or
zero
something,
clue.
but it's not fly. Anyway,
Eagle Flight. They made a VR game called Eagle Flight, which was you're playing as eagles flying.
I thought
That's
it
all
was
I can
called
think
steep.
of.
Anyway, never mind. Ignore me. I'm getting
Steep.
something confused here.
Look at that, Bally confusing names. What a surprise. No, Steep is just like a kind of sports, snow sports game with like skiing and snowboarding off giant mountains and stuff. Anyway, I don't know why we're talking about Steep. I was talking about it because I was like, that's the one Ubisoft game that we still haven't got. The one Ubisoft game that we did get in this presentation is South Park: The Fractured But Whole, which was great to hear that Nintendo guy tried to say that without making it sound like butthole.
I know, I couldn't believe it.
It was very good. It's coming out in April. It's one of the rare games that's actually coming out in April.
You played
this
the
year.
first one, but not this one.
I have not played the first
You've
one.
not played the okay.
I've waited for the first one to come down in price forever, and it always goes down to like £6 on Steam, which is a little above my threshold.
Oh my god!
If it was like $3.49,
like
I'd be in there.
Two Starbucks coffees.
I know.
Two.
I don't know. Look. This is what Steam sales do to you as a human. They just make you like wait and wait and wait for the best optimal.
You're turning
possible.
video games into McDonald's, is what
it is. That's exactly what it is. Look, but South Park is probably going to be as satisfying as a chicken burger to me, so I will give it that much attention. The first game people seem to like much more than this game. I think people weren't as hot on this second one.
Right.
And maybe it's the climate right now, but I just don't think like the style of humor of South Park is really hitting in the same way that it did back a few years ago.
Yeah.
You know. So there you go. That's coming. I don't know if you have any interest in playing one of these games. I don't know if you ever watched much South Park back in the day.
Not much, and the stuff I did, it was funny. It was fine, but it wasn't like a lot of my friends loved it growing up, and I just never got into it. I just did not have the energy or the time.
It was one of those shows that I have a history with because back in the day, like me and my cousins stole the VHS from my uncle and went upstairs and like put it on and then got caught watching it when we were like 11 or whatever, and yeah, it was bad. But yeah, South Park is like one of those forbidden fruits almost, you know, because it was like something that we weren't allowed to watch because it was a 15 and we were like 11 or whatever, so we were just trying to be sneaky about it. It was fun. That was a fun time, like trying to just sneak away and watch it. And it was the South Park movie is a thing that I remember fondly. I don't know if it holds up now, but it did back in the day when I was 11. So there you go. Then we have the game that will never die.
It just keeps coming up.
How many more Nintendo Directs will this game be mentioned in? Because I will wager that at least one or two more they're going to talk about this game.
It's so annoying.
It's Hyrule Warriors Definitive Edition. Have you had enough of Dynasty Warriors games on Nintendo platforms?
Is it the only game on Wii U, 3DS, and Switch?
No, Captain Toad now. Captain Toad now has that honor as well.
That's true. Very good.
There might be one more. Donkey Kong. If they brought Donkey Kong Returns, that would be weird.
Yeah, there's sort of like an awkward triangle there between Returns, Freeze, Wii U, Switch, 3DS.
Yeah.
Wii.
Yeah. So yeah, aside from that, I guess just Hyrule Warriors and Captain Toad. They're the special children, apparently. They get to be on every Nintendo platform. It's coming out May 18th. moving on. We don't need to talk about that. Next up, we have ARMS. They have a tournament that's happening. They didn't talk about this tournament in the UK version of the Direct because it's America-based and it's irrelevant to us.
ARMS
so.
is hanging on. ARMS
Not
has
really,
legs.
though. It doesn't, though, because they stopped supporting it, and it seemed like they had a whole host of characters they were planning, because people went into the data and they found like all these names for new characters, and they just didn't. They released like 3 characters, and then they were like, okay, we're done. We're stopping supporting this game now. So I don't think ARMS does have legs, honestly. It feels like they abandoned it a little early.
Well, they kind of released it at the same time as Splatoon 2, and then, talking of which, that's the game that's getting the support.
Yeah, well, I mean, the thing that we should mention about ARMS is they are doing another global test punch that's happening at the end of March.
We've done a couple of them, and we've not been overly thrilled.
You may question their wisdom of like, well, why would you do one of these again? But like, since April of last year, they've sold a lot of Switches. Yeah. So there are a lot of people out there who have Switches who have not experienced ARMS and who may be interested in it if they get a kind of demo test. So doing another one of these is good. Honestly, like, Nintendo should just have a demo for ARMS in the eShop, like a single player, like just try out the mechanics type thing. Yeah. Because like the global test punch is cool because you get to test the online, but they should have something there to appeal to people. But anyway, Splatoon 2, the big daddy. Version 3.0 is coming. They got a bunch of new gear, some new maps. Wahoo World looks really cool. It's like a theme park.
Camp Triggerfish is awful. I hate that one.
Yeah, that's one of the worst maps from the first game. That's unfortunate they're bringing that out. But yeah, more stages. Rank X, so if you're super good in the ranked mode.
Because I was at the top of S rank just wishing for a rank
Bally
that
just
goes
hanging out
beyond.
in S plus all day. You can level up even more. And then the big thing happened, which was a weird fucking trailer. My God,
that music
trailer,
damn,
it was good.
It was good.
I like that.
I want to listen to it again. It was very good.
So Bally, they have an expansion. It's the first paid content for a Splatoon game, which we thought this would happen with the first one, but they never did it. Splatoon 2 is coming. It's the Octo expansion. You play as Octolings in a kind of Portal-esque style thing where it's like test chambers. Like you're on this underground, you're going from chamber to chamber, and that's kind of how Portal works, is like test chambers. Right. So it feels
like there was a lot of the innovation that you were kind of hoping the regular single player was going to have, but it was maybe, certainly in your view, I think you thought it was lacking quite a lot. I enjoyed. I am very skeptical still because I thought that the trailer for the original Splatoon 2 single player looked fucking awesome. I was like, wow, that looks great. And then I played Splatoon 2 single player and hated it. So I am very skeptical about this expansion, and I doubt I will play this. I enjoyed both single player campaigns, and this one looks good as well. I don't know if I'm prepared to pick it up. I don't know. I want to see what.
So it's $20, which will probably work out to like $17.99 because fuck us, of course. And it's going to be 80 levels, which is a lot. Like that's a huge amount of stuff for $20. People are being like, "Oh, it's too much money." I'm like, Jesus Christ, man! 80 levels is so much. That's probably more than the main single player game. Yeah. So it's. I think it's a good value for people who want that. I just question whether I want that. I don't know that I do. If they continue to have the same system of like, okay, you have 3 lives, and then if you lose them and restart the whole level,
it does always feel weird when you turn on Splatoon and you don't play multiplayer. It does. That felt weird to me when I was beating the single player. And that live system, you're right, is awful. Like that, they better fix that.
The thing that I have come to learn over the years is that I just don't care for single-player shooter campaigns unless they are specifically designed as single-player games, right? Because Wolfenstein and Wolfenstein 2 are fantastic. I love both those games. They're really good. But that's because they are story-driven, like they are level-designed for that purpose. And then you come across stuff like Splatoon and even, like, Titanfall 2, as much as people praise that single-player campaign, I was like, I kind of just want to finish this so I can play multiplayer, you know? I really was not in that game for single-player stuff at all, and people keep bringing up, oh, it'd be great if Overwatch had a single-player campaign. I don't care about that shit. Like, I would happily just play multiplayer for these games because that's where I like the mechanics working, that's where it's fluid and fun, I enjoy them. I just don't enjoy the single-player versions of multiplayer-based games most of the time.
I need to see the trailer again. I think there was some interesting level ideas, but
yeah, like it looks cool, and that's the thing. They make kick-ass trailers for Splatoon stuff, especially for single player.
The whole style, man, it's so good, good.
And like, yeah, there's a kind of weird like feel to it. It feels like they are cribbing from some kind of darker stuff and like underground, and like it looks like kind of dungeony in terms of there's this one screen that pops up that you see like almost a Metroid style map of like where they're going, and it's like, what's going on here? And they're like, supposedly they're going to fill in some of the lore and stuff like that, which I couldn't give less of a shit about. Like the Splatoon story, no thank you.
Yeah.
But I don't know, some people do care, so it's good for them. It's a big deal, so that's huge for the Splatoon community. And Splatoon 2 is still my go-to multiplayer game on Switch. Like right now, I'm not really playing anything on Switch, so I'm just booting up Splatoon when I want to listen to a podcast or whatever. Just play some rounds.
That's a big difference between you and me, is that there's all these games that you've already played that are coming to Switch that I'm playing. Stuff like Stardew Valley, Axiom Verge. Again, not Night in the Woods. That's different, but yeah, there's like I've been playing a lot of little games here, and not the Stardew Valley is a little game, but I've been playing a lot of little games here and there that maybe you've not played the same ones on Switch.
Yeah, so I don't know. Splatoon is still a game I play. It's very good. So and that was it. That was the end of the direct. Bye. Nothing else to talk about.
See you next time.
Yep. See you next time. No, Koizumi. Oh, I'm so glad that they have come to this point where they've really refined the pace of this style of direct, because
they just love that. And one more thing.
Yes, because this style of direct, when they first did it, they had the headlines like below, so you could see what was coming up.
God.
And it was like, what a nightmare. Now they're doing the side view, which works better. I still miss the old directs. Like, as we talk about a lot, the Switch's UI feels barren and bereft of personality. The new directs kind of have a sterile feel to them in that way as well. Like, I like Koizumi, and he's a slick presenter. He kind of fits this style because he's a very smooth talker. He's a slick presenter, but we're not going to have a dude staring at bananas anymore, are we? And I fucking love that shit. Like, Iwata just staring at fucking bananas is one of the best things of a Nintendo Direct.
And him speaking, because he is speaking in Japanese, right? So that like does make a difference to some degree. It's quite nice hearing Iwata speaking English, even if it is a little broken at times. It added a real charm.
But like, he was a good English speaker. Like, Iwata could properly speak English,
exactly.
And he was good at it. And I miss that stuff. But I'm glad they've refined this style to the point where they're like, okay, we get it. We know what you want. We know you want that one last thing. And boy, howdy did they have a one last thing. So I should mention that while I was watching this direct for the first time, I was not in the most ideal of conditions. I was with my family at a jazz club because they decided to do that for the evening. So we were hanging out there.
Did they not know there was a Nintendo Direct on?
Oh, no, clearly is like the most important thing. And the music was blaring super loudly, so I wouldn't have been able to hear anything anyway. So I was just like...
Visual only.
In a jazz club, you're not really doing anything, just sitting there listening to the music. A lot of people have their eyes closed in places like that because it's just like an oral kind of experience. And so, it wasn't like I was ruining anything for just sitting there on my phone, but I'm just sitting there listening to the music while watching stuff on my phone, so I didn't hear anything. And it's one of the benefits of watching the UK Direct is that they subtitle Koizumi because it's the same direct they use for all European regions, so they subtitle in the different languages depending on the country. So I could actually read what was going on most of the time, and for most of these, it's just about the trailer, and it's not really, you don't need to hear it necessarily. So it actually worked out quite well. But at the end, it was like, the Splatoon stuff starts happening. I'm like, oh my god, I think I know what this is. Like, I think because like the CG was looking very good. I'm like, they're not going to do this right now, are they? It's like, well, they're going to do it, and then they did it, and then the eyeball, and then the burning flames, and then the most intimidating Mario that anyone has ever seen. Super Smash Brothers is coming in 2018 to the Nintendo Switch. Bally, how do you feel?
Great. Like, I'm a bit sick of this. So many people are debating, like, is it a remake? Is it a new game? Is it a remake? Is it a new game? It's like,
who fucking cares? It's Smash Brothers, goddammit.
First of all, it doesn't matter. And secondly, I think it's highly likely, surely, it's like Splatoon 2. It's a new game, and it's got the same assets with extra stuff. Like, I don't see why it would be anything other than that. Like, I think everyone just needs to chill out on the whole, is it a new game? Is it a remake? We know what it's going to be largely. And we're now in the hype train of character reveals, and there's going to be hopefully more character reveals after the game comes out, and it's going to be great. I'm excited.
Yeah, I think we both kind of firmly agree that this is a Splatoon 2 situation in which it's basically a 1.5, but also we added a whole bunch of things. And honestly, at this point, I think Splatoon 2 is defined enough to be its own game, especially with the Octo expansion happening.
Yeah.
Like, it feels distinct in its own right. And also, if you go back and look at Splatoon 1 versus Splatoon 2 now, visually it is much better. Like, it actually improved a huge amount
the lighting
over the first
and stuff
game.
It's just it's got a step up. It does look
that game looks incredible on the Switch screen.
Yeah.
Like, it runs so smoothly. It's so good. It's an awesome handheld game, and now the Inklings are going to be the next playable characters in Smash Brothers, or so that's what the trailer suggests, unless Mario and Link brutally murdered them, because Jesus Christ, it's got a dark tone going on. But I love it. I love how Nintendo are leaning into the like super serious side of Smash Brothers, and they're like, this is some deep shit, man. Like, this is real.
Caroline was watching me live watching this, and I did my usual freak out like I did when Smash Brothers is revealed, and she was like, what was that about? Why what's so good about that game? And I'm like, you don't understand. It's like you take all the Nintendo characters and they fight each other.
This is like the mecca of Nintendo.
Yeah, like, and then she was like, oh, that does sound quite cool actually. I was like, yeah, it is.
This is where you hook her into Smash Brothers by getting out your Wii U and starting to play some of that.
Oh yeah,
boy.
yeah. Oh, man.
Yeah, so I definitely think that this is... There are a few reasons why it has to be a kind of, not necessarily port, but Splatoon 2 style situation. And for one, Sakurai murders himself making these games, and it has not been long enough, I think, since the last game came out, and he seemed like he needed a break. You know, that dude seemed like he needed to take a break. So I think he probably did, and I think he's come back and done this and made it a game that is not as backbreaking, which means that they're going to be relying on a lot of the assets from the Wii U version, which means it's going to look pretty much the same. It's probably going to control pretty much the same.
And it was a great control system. Like, it was such a solid, mechanically driven game, like the last Smash Brothers on Wii U.
Yeah,
like
I really like everything about how that game feels to play. It's just, for me, it's the best Smash Brothers that's ever been made, and we're not, like, experts.
Yeah. Like, Melee's a bit fast and Brawl's a bit slow, and this is like that happy medium. Like, let's do it.
And you know, as non-competitive players, as people who just like enjoy the game and play at a whatever level we play at versus each other, which you know we're okay at Smash Brothers. We know what we're doing, but we're not experts in any means, and we'll get our ass kicked if we go online against some real players.
Right.
But you know, for us and what we like to do with Smash Brothers, I think it's perfect. So I think it's a good system to stick with. And for the majority of people, most people will agree that, you know, this is the ultimate, like the Wii U version of Smash Brothers is really the ultimate version of that game, aside from the kind of single player stuff, which I think is not quite as good as previous entries.
Yeah. I certainly enjoyed the cutscenes of Subspace Emissary. That was insane. It's frustrating, but I think fans will put a lot of pressure on this game having a good single player aspect, and there's every chance it really won't.
I don't think it will, like, because something like that does take a lot of time. It takes a huge amount of effort to create something like that, and then Sakurai has already stated, like, he was like, and then I put all those effort, and then people just uploaded them to YouTube, and I'm like, well, Sakurai, that's what people fucking do with everything these days, so that's a really bad excuse for not putting a single player, like, story driven mode into the game. But you know, he doesn't want to do that, so fair enough. And, you know, don't put any more pressure on that man. He's already made, like, the greatest series of all time, like, multiple times over, and it keeps outdoing himself. So let's cut him some slack, for God's sake. But the other reason is it's coming out this year. It's 2018, Bally, which we kind of predicted at the start of the year, saying that, you know, it's probably going to come out with the online system.
Right.
I think September is a good window for it. I also think that they're going to delay it, and they're going to delay their online system at the same time, which means I would get my prediction right. So I think
they'll delay it to the end of the year, or to 2019, you mean?
No, to November. Kind of like end of the year.
Sounds about right.
And And with that window of 2018, you do not have the same 2 to 3 year hype cycle that Smash has had previously. Like the Wii U version was every day on the Miiverse doing a new picture. You did have Brawl with the dojo where every day there'd be a new update. So like the hype cycle for Smash is usually a lot longer than this. Like usually we know it a couple of years in advance and they build on it and slowly over time, and they continue to use it to drive marketing and to drive excitement. And with it coming out this year, they just don't have as much time to do that. Like, the places where they're going to reveal characters are the sparse Nintendo Directs that we already have, E3, and maybe a Smash Brothers dedicated Direct that they have before the game comes out. Yeah. But aside from that, there's not a huge venue to do so, and maybe that's kind of a choice on the development team's part to be more surprising to players this time, as opposed to revealing everything in advance, and maybe allowing some, joy of discovery when you get to the game and see who the characters are. But with the internet and the way things work and the way leaks happened last time anyway, I doubt that's possible. Like, we knew about Duck Hunt Dog and Shulk and all this stuff before they got revealed because of leaks.
Right.
I imagine it might happen again if they aren't careful. Like, if they do another demo and people hack it and figure things out, that could be.
To what extent do you think the roster will be the same? I've heard rumors that they'll start with a much smaller roster, maybe like the silhouettes we saw in the trailer, maybe plus a few more, and then they'll build from there. And there's every chance that characters like Cloud might become like Snake and then not come back or something. Do you think that's highly likely?
I think it's possible. I think what is very possible is that they treat this like Splatoon, in that they start you out with a base number of characters and you can unlock some, but then they will start to dole them out for free as updates over the coming months, like after Smash releases, to keep momentum up, to keep people engaged and excitement, and then also offer even more downloadable characters, new ones down the line. So I imagine maybe Cloud will come back as a free downloadable character as opposed to a paid one because he's already been in a Smash game, versus, I don't know, Sora from Kingdom Hearts or something that they do paid later down the line. There's possibilities for them to go out there and be super weird with Smash Brothers. And as I kind of mentioned to you before, Overwatch is a good model for this. They have created a community around making characters an event and making every new one a big deal, and people will come back to play that character and people will be engaged because they are constantly updating it. If Smash Brothers adopts a kind of games as service like model, it could be very successful for them, as long as they don't lean into the bad parts of those types of things, which Nintendo haven't generally done with their other games. Splatoon 2, in terms of its games as a service model, is free updates constantly, and now they're finally doing a paid update, which isn't microtransactions based. It's pay for what you get, and that's what people like. So I think that is a very real possibility.
Exciting. It's exciting. This build up, those trailers are so gorgeous just to watch, and the
they are amazing,
and the hype. I was just watching people's reactions on YouTube because I can't resist it, and it's so good. It's so good.
Yeah, there's nothing quite like it, Even people who I don't think are super into Smash still get swept up in the hype of Smash Brothers, because it's just it's a great celebration, and I think a lot of people have been well, maybe they should try and get some other companies to put characters in here and make it this celebration of just video games, let alone Nintendo.
I mean, it almost is that once you have Pac-Man, Sonic, Cloud, Mega Man,
Bayonetta, what? It's
you're getting a lot of big hitters. I mean, what big hitters do they have left that they could get in there, do you think?
Oh, there's loads, there's tons. There's so many characters that any people want that just out of the realm of possibility. People are oh no, Goku is happening now, because clearly
is Ridley finally gonna happen?
I think that dream is very much dead. But
really,
I don't think they're gonna do Ridley. I think they made their stance very clear on that, and I don't think it's ever gonna happen. Besides, I think you can take other characters from the Metroid series to possibly work in that way,
right? I remember that reveal in the Direct when it was Ridley is actually a boss in this mode.
Yeah.
And it was like, oh god.
You never know. Like, just like they did with Pokemon X and Y, like they took Greninja before that game was even like known to them and like made him.
They've
They
done
could
some
take
really unusual stuff with some characters.
They could take stuff from Metro Prime 4 that's coming out and make a character from that game that no one knows about yet that could be in this game. You know, you have no idea what they could do.
Nice.
So that's potential. But I'm excited. I just want more Smash Brothers in my life. That's all I need.
would have been absolutely content with a port, to be honest.
Yeah,
this is a
so would I.
bonus. This is
because
great.
honestly, like, it's been so long since the Wii U has been kind of put away, and I haven't had it out for ages. And like every time I want to play Smash, I'm like, oh, but I have to set it up. And
I'm going to set it up. I'm going to make sure Bally's on Skype. And then we go on, and then it's a faff. But once we're there, it's like some of the best gaming we've ever had. Like, it's the rivalries and the characters and
you know, the great thing about Switch is that with the video recording, we can just have those 30-second screen caps of every time we destroy each other.
Capture all those boom towns.
Those great moments that we have. I'm very much looking forward to playing a ton of Smash when it comes out, and hopefully it'll be soon, like 2018, this year. Man, they have a lineup. So,
and even if there's a lot of controversy about characters and things, I want to see some new stages and that kind of thing. Like, I think there's going to
we're going to get a New Donk City for sure. There'll be one of those. There'll be a Breath of the Wild stage for sure. Yeah, we haven't even talked about the fact that Breath of the Wild Link is in this game, who
That's cool.
I personally think has to be a brand new character. And the reason why is that Sakurai is so intent on the specifics of the characters that he puts into the game and making them unique based on that stuff.
Some more than others, but yeah.
Yeah, but like I think even in the modern era, far more so, he looking towards like
it's
that.
More
and so
the oldest characters are the most boring because you're right. Every new character, they've made a real effort to make the moveset like reflect the game they're from.
Exactly, like really, really in a very deep way.
Yeah, like
and
Mega Man and stuff. That was
it's amazing. And so Breath of the Wild Link, there are so many opportunities. Like his grab is probably going to be magnesis now as opposed to a hook shot.
There is no like grappling hook in that game.
And his up B is probably going to involve the paraglider. He'll probably have like that as a float down or something, and he'll probably have a way to break his weapons, and it's going to be, I hope, a whole new design for Link. And maybe that means we lose the old Link, but potentially they could have Classic Link, Toon Link, and Breath of the Wild Link, which may be a little bit overkill, but maybe you kill Toon Link. You know, maybe you keep Classic Link and Breath of the Wild Link because they're basically the same characters. Toon Link is a fucking clone, and you know it, Bally.
He is a clone. That's actually one
clone,
of the downsides of Toon Link is that his moves aren't particularly Wind Waker. They're just kind of Link, but in Toon Link form.
Well, I mean, you know, Wind Waker is traditional Link anyway, because like that game is based off the model of classic Zelda games, which Breath of the Wild just gets away with because it has so many different things going on. The Link in Breath of the Wild is so different.
And what about these Inklings? Like, how they're going to work?
I mean, we already kind of have a model for a kind of shooter character with Mega Man because his A move is a projectile, so there's potential for that.
They need to incorporate that move of getting ink out there and then sliding as a squid in the ink, surely.
I think that their dodge is going to be turning into a squid, you know? Clearly that's going to be how it works. Like, dodge side to side. It's like Yoshi rolling in the egg. They're going to duck under the ink to dodge. I think that their melee attacks are all going to be roller and brush and stuff. So, like, when you're up close, you're going to, like, pop out a roller and smash people over the head. Stuff like that. They have a lot of ways of getting around the problems of, you know, just having guns and things. Right. They have other things they can do. Good. Throw grenades for specials. Like I can write out a Splatoon moveset right now, Bally, very easily.
There's so much time between the game now and the game coming out where this is going to be the most talked about game for the rest of the show, right? For the rest of the year. Like it's going to be a thing.
Look, this is a podcast that ranks the Wii U game as the best game ever made. So you know. This is where our allegiance is.
Second best game ever made.
Oh, I guess you're right. We put Zelda above it. We put Breath of the Wild above it. Maybe we should take that down again because I don't know.
Well, we'll have another think in episode
will we?
150. You know.
I don't know. I think I'm done with that list now. That list is done. We can blow it up, get rid of it. But yeah, overall, Bally, how do you feel about this direct generally? What were your thoughts? I
think if you had taken Smash out of the equation, it's essentially a direct paint by numbers. It wasn't overly exciting.
No.
really strong ports in there. Stuff like Okami and Undertale are two games I'm very keen on playing that I've been meaning to play.
And even Crash Bandicoot as well is a good one.
Right.
So,
but I mean, the best games on this list, stuff like Octopath, it was just a case of getting the release date. I think we didn't learn a ton more about that game, but I think our hype levels are already really high. And yeah, the whole 3DS situation, as we've discussed, is pretty unusual. I think there's still a few really big announcements to come at E3, and
I mean, like, where are the Mario Odyssey downloadable kingdoms that are probably going to happen at some point this year? You know,
and we'll get like even though Metroid probably won't come out this year, we'll get a trailer hopefully at E3 and stuff like that.
Yeah,
like there's some really.
Where is Retro's video game? No one knows what the hell that even is.
They're remaking Tropical Freeze.
There are still a lot of unanswered questions, as we've said.
Loads of
like
unanswered.
Nintendo are in a great position because they are filling out their lineup, albeit with a lot of ports, but it means that they still have some good things coming out. Like, they have original stuff with Kirby and with Octopath and with Travis Strikes Again and with Mario Tennis. Like, they have some decent, like, good lineup fillers while having all these ports, while also having in the back of their pocket Retro's game and Metroid Prime 4 and Smash Brothers and potentially Animal Crossing and potentially Pokemon. Like, there are all these boxes that they can tick, and whether they tick them all this year is a question mark. I don't think they will, because they keep maintaining momentum and keep things going.
Them, do the other half next year,
and they don't need to tick them all because the Switch has such momentum and goodwill that it's not necessary. So yeah, overall I agree. I think it's a fine direct without Smash. With Smash, it's a good direct. It's a solid direct. And I don't know. I didn't expect that to happen at the end. I didn't think we were going to get that this early.
I didn't either. That was an awesome bonus.
Yeah, for sure. But hey, that means that we've got the rest of the year to look forward to teasers and more things. That's going to wrap up the show. Bally, where can people find you on the internet?
Please find me on Twitter. I'm at Ballyman91. That's BALLYMAN91. And also check out the podcast Twitter account. That's at TNL Podcast. That's at TNL Podcast. That's the best place to go to find out when all the new episodes are coming out, and including our Patreon exclusive episodes. We just recorded one last week. We recorded our second episode of TNL Takes, and we talked about YouTube, all the ins and outs of the whole website that is YouTube. It was a good conversation. It was interesting. So yeah, if you'd like to support us on Patreon and access that episode, that is of course our $5 tier. We would greatly appreciate your support.
Absolutely, and you can find that patreon.com/thisnintendolife, and where we'd also like to thank some of our Patreon backers.
Yes, thank you to our $10 tier backers, my girlfriend Caroline, and also Atari Alex. Thank you so much for your support.
Thank you everyone else who supports us there. We're doing well, and hopefully get some more and able to bring some more stuff to the show. We can be found in many places. You can find me on the Twitters as well. I'm at LordNBZ. We didn't do any emails this show as well because we had a bit of a compressed timeline. We've both been busy. But Bally, where can people send their emails usually if they want to get those on the show?
Please send emails to thisnintendolife@gmail.com. That is thisnintendolife@gmail.com. We will do an email segment next time.
Yes, of course. So get those in. Send them in. We want to hear more from more people. You can also send those to our Discord, which you can find by going to our Twitter account. You can find us in many places. We're on iTunes, we're on Stitcher, we're on any good place you can download podcasts. That is usually where we can be found. Subscribe, rate us on iTunes. That's a good way to get word out there about the show. Rating us on iTunes is the best. Takes not much time. If you want to write a review, that's even better. That helps us even more. And we'd like to read them and hear what you say. It's very ego boosting. So please inflate our egos because it's just good for everyone involved. I think that is pretty much it. Bally, any final thoughts before we close?
Smash 2K18.
Yeah, boy. So excited. I'm going to destroy you with Lucina again, motherfucker. You're going down.
We'll get back to the Clone Wars.
The Clone Wars, yeah, we do for sure. Oh man, I'm really worried that they're going to take out Cloud because Cloud has kind of become my new main at this point. Like,
I struggle so much against your Cloud. It's insane.
I love it.
God damn.
He's so good. But hopefully they'll bring him back, and hopefully we'll get a bunch more surprises. So we'll talk about all that and more on the next episode. But for now, thank you everyone for listening. Thank you for keeping with us, and we will see you next time for another episode of This Nintendo Life. Goodbye, everyone. Three, two. Oh gosh, I just hiccup.
What was that?
In the
I was
middle.
like, come on, spin it out. Spin it out.
Okay, ready? 3, 2, 1.